Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. And today we are looking at the latest album from Hellyeah, entitled Welcome Home. Okay, so there's something I want to address real quickly before we talk about the actual quality of this record, and that has to do with how people are already reacting to this record. This, I'm sure as many of you know, is the last album recorded by Vinnie Paul while he was alive, drummer for Hellyeah, most famously known for his work with Pantera. He's an icon of the scene who will be missed terribly. That is not up for debate. It's terrible what happened to him, gone too soon. But here's the thing. I feel like people are loving this album because Vinnie Paul is dead. And don't get me wrong, I've definitely heard way worse music in my life. But that just doesn't seem very fair to me, in my opinion. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. I remember when Linkin Park released their last record, One More Light, and it was critically fucking panned. Everyone hated it. Critics, the fans, everyone. No one liked it. And then 2 months later, Chester Bennington died, and suddenly everyone loved it. To the point where people were actually starting to go back to reviews of that album and giving critics a lot of shit for not being more enthusiastic towards the record, for not being more empathetic. It got so bad that I think Anthony Fantano had to issue a response video because people were just not let that go. You're more than entitled to like this record. I'm not saying don't. You're more than entitled to like One More Light or any other number of records that feature people that may have recently died around the time of their release. I'm not arguing that you can't enjoy those records. But if you are enjoying them because that artist is dead, that is a disservice to that artist. It is disrespectful. It is dishonest. It is disingenuous. It's a waste of time. And it makes those of us who actually put time and effort into what we say for reviews look like absolute fucking jackasses. Now, granted, there are rare occurrences where an artist's death is indeed factored into the album by that artist. Take, for instance, Black Star by David Bowie. David Bowie knew full and well good that he was going to die. He was dying. He was very likely going to die before this album came out. And if I'm not mistaken, he died 3 days after it came out. Therefore, he put everything about himself on that record. It's one of the most honest and powerful records ever composed because it's essentially his last fucking will on testament committed to fucking tape. But as I said, these are very rare occurrences, and frankly, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my fucking head. In the case of this record, this is simply a Hellyeah record, and Vinnie Paul passed away before it was finished and released. That's unfortunate. But it should not be a deciding factor into how we look at this album. I'm not saying don't mourn the man. I'm not saying we need to just forget him. I'm not saying don't be emotional. If you are, then be emotional. I'm saying don't suck his fucking dick just because he's dead, because he wouldn't want that. I don't know the man personally, but I can promise you he wouldn't fucking want that. At least I know I wouldn't. Plain and simple. Like, David Bowie's dead, but Tin Machine is still a lame record. Vinnie Paul is dead, and spoiler alert, this is a lame record. And with that in mind, let's just get right into it. I don't think this is a very good record. I think it's lame. I think it's poorly written. I think it's pretty poorly performed across the board. It's not very interesting. It's not very original. Much like other Hellyeah records, it's a collection of early 2000s metal tropes and the brash stupidity of Five Finger Death Punch with just a tiny dash of the southern groove of Pantera smushed together, deep-fried, and thrown out to service. I mean, the formula has gotten so repetitive that the band is even repeating the talking points while promoting this record. You know, the typical shit like, this is our heaviest album yet. This is the best one yet. This one brings back the glory days of Pantera. That one in particular I've heard a lot recently. I hear that shit with literally every Hellyeah record that comes out. Like, holy fucking shit. Like, Pantera wasn't that fucking long ago, people, and there are plenty of bands that have taken the ideas that Pantera established and taking them into brand new territory. Lamb of God is a fantastic example. I've even had this argument with people before. If Pantera was still around today, they'd probably be going in a lot of the directions that Lamb of God has gone. So forgive me if I don't believe that this is finally the record where they embrace the heaviness and the aura of Pantera. Granted, there are objectively some pretty sonically heavy moments. Take, for instance, opening track 333, which does kind of embrace this minimalistic southern thrash vibe and some very Pantera-ish musical ideas. But not to the point where I would say that Pantera is back. Not to the point where I would ever consider comparing this to Far Beyond Driven or Vulgar Display of Power. Like, no, not at all. Heavy by the standards of Five Finger Death Punch, sure, but not heavy by the standards of heavy fucking metal. Some of these songs really reminded me of listening to like early 2000s metal, and not in a good way. Like, I kept thinking of Trapped, kept thinking of Drowning Pool, I kept thinking of a project that Vinnie was actually in, Damage Plan. Like a track like Oh My God's a great example. I mean, this thing's so fucking edgy, it may as well have been on the fucking Daredevil soundtrack. Or a track like Black Flag Army, which is trying to sound really rebellious and rambunctious, but it doesn't really sound like anything that sounds that different from any number of teen metal bands that are pissed off at their stepdads or whatever. Also, Chad Gray does this really weird little rap thing in like the verses of this, and it's just kind of cringeworthy if we're being honest. God, and don't even get me started on Perfect, which basically sounds like the bizarro version of a long-lost Hillary Duff song. Like a straight-up pop rock bass with these really simplistic lyrics that rely on a lot of wordplay where Hellyeah just take the opportunity to bitch about their ex-girlfriends and shitty relationships. It's some serious eye-rolling shit thanks to lyrics like this. You're as perfect as a dream that will never come true. You're as perfect as a sky that will never been blue. First off, that's just bad grammar. Second, that literally sounds like a sad teenager's really shitty poetry. Like, come the fuck on, man. You're an adult. I'm sure you could have thought of anything else. The title track is one of the few songs that shows some genuine promise. There's actually a pretty cathartic and impassionate guitar solo near the latter half that's backed up by some symphonic influences that I think are alright. But honestly, that's not enough to really turn this album around. It's just dry, uninventive, uncreative, bland, edgy. Pretty much right after Perfect, I was starting to fall asleep. Songs were bleeding together, and I wasn't feeling great. I'm laying down on my couch, and I just kind of went... I guess this is a good time to mention Vinnie Paul's actual performance, because some people are going, oh, this is the performance of a lifetime. What a way to go. And I'm going to respectfully disagree. I mean, he's by no means incompetent on here, but he's not really doing anything all that special either. I mean, if I would have absolutely believed you if you told me that he never worked on this album one bit. Like, I'm not arguing that he isn't talented, because he is, or was rather. But this is not necessarily the way I'd want to go. You know, this isn't exactly his Black Star, to say the least. I'm going to give this thing a 1.5 out of 5. I'd like to go higher, even just for the sake of being nice, but I just do not enjoy this record. And like I said before, Vinnie dying is not going to change the fact that this is not a good record. And honestly, straight up, hand on heart, I don't think we'd really even be talking about this if Vinnie Paul was alive. Because, I mean, Hellyeah, not exactly filling stadiums. I mean, they've never been the most popular band in this genre. I don't personally know anyone who's that into them. I don't know, man. If you ever wanted, like, a slightly more talented version of Five Finger Death Punch, good for you. Have fun. Go play this at the Monster Truck Rally while you're fucking shoving fried chicken down your mouth. Go for it. Have fun. Out of respect for Vinnie, I'll be playing Vulgar Display of Power tonight instead of Welcome Home. And again, if you like it, if you seriously, genuinely, 100% truly like it, by all means, I won't knock you. Swear to God, I won't. But I'm simply not going to suck up to this record just because he died. That's not fair, that's not right, that's not honest. And you can call me an asshole all you want, but don't call me dishonest, because I'm fucking not. 1.5 out of 5. Yeah, it's Vinnie Paul's last record, but frankly, that's really the only noteworthy thing about this whole thing. It's a bad record. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.